What's up, everyone? It is DebraSue with Toledo to the World, and we are so happy that each of you could join us. I know a lot of you come back and look at the program because we get right in between your dinner hour. So we get it, get your dinner over with, and then come back and watch us later if you need to. But for those of you who do decide to stay on with us, we do appreciate each and every one of you for supporting and, of course, posting your questions that we hope that we could answer for you. Today is also a really good show, you guys. I have an encore from Derrick Capito, who has been with us once before. He is an insurance specialist, and he's back because a lot of you had questions, and a lot of you asked me to bring him back to answer some questions in a more detailed way. And so, welcome back to the show, Derrick. Appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me. This is an awesome platform. I truly enjoy being here.
Thank you so much. I enjoy having you. So listen, let's just hop right into this. Okay, I'm going to get right out front because, as you know from our last discussion, our last podcasts, a lot of folks had questions regarding different types of insurances. If they were to qualify for them, if they had medical conditions. I'm going to let you hop right into that. First of all, let's start out talking about the different types of insurances. First, let's tell our people why it's important to have this insurance and for themselves and their children.
Well, to have insurance, it not only puts a financial legacy out there for your family, but it also has multiple benefits. And we talked about this before, but I'm going to go into the details of this.
Mhm.
I just recently had some communication with a young man, and I'm like, hey, out there shopping insurance and things of that nature. And he's like, man, it's funny that you gave me your business card because I just had a GoFundMe for my cousin. And I said,
Mm,
man, really? I said,
wow.
how old was he? And he was like, he was 26 years old. It's unfortunate that, the streets kind of got to him because he was out there doing what he had no business doing. And I said, man, my condolences. I know that hurts. He was like, yeah, he was very close to me. But same time, he left two kids. He had no insurance. We had to go through a rush process because we found out that it happened this day. The
Wow.
week, we were like, hey, what are we going to do? GoFundMe, we're putting things together to try to lay
Mhm.
my cousin to rest. And it was just a sad situation. So this young man took my card. I did sign him up with a policy, and he was really shocked at the pricing. He's like,
Mhm.
it would have been way more than that. And I'm like, you're only 27 years old.
Right.
Always best to get it while you're young.
Mhm.
Man, I didn't know any of this, and neither did my family. We didn't understand the power of having coverage and the living benefits as well.
Sure, sure. And that's the thing is, you know what? Everything is just so expensive now. People would they almost run away from the idea of buying insurance because as most people do, they think, well, I'm alive now. Why would I pay for something that I don't have to worry about? But as it stands now, that's not even a statement that any of us can make anymore, because we always hear the old adage say life is not promised to anyone. And you know what? Listen, it really is not, but it happens to everyone now. I don't care how old you are, from 4 years old to 26 to 56 to 86. It's this life insurance is almost something that you want to have in your wallet, like your driver's license, or like your birth certificate. You come here with a birth certificate, or you come here with an ID, and it has become so vital now because everything is really just so uncertain. And I would testify myself, that I have young people under the age of 10, and I thought, my goodness, why don't we just move this insurance here, because it was a way better buy. You know um a trustworthy person that you have right in your face. You're not on the phone with someone I mean, you are on the phone, but it's someone local that you can meet, you can talk to, you can actually develop a friendship with all of my insurances. Whether it's car insurance, I know my agent by his first name. House insurance, I know my agents by their first name. And so that makes a world of difference for individuals. Also, I think that trust factor says something as well.
Agreed, agreed. And there's multiple types of insurance. And, having a conversation with individuals, they didn't realize if you had pre-existing conditions. I was told that I couldn't get insurance because I'm what they call it, type 2 diabetic, or I had a heart attack and I know I
Mhm.
can't get insurance. That's not true. There's
Right.
coverage for everyone unless there's
Mhm.
something severe. And what I mean by severe, like you have, For instance, I had a problem with someone who had muscular dystrophy and Down syndrome, but I found out there was a way to get them insurance as well. It was just an age restriction on those. Well, so
Mm-hmm.
coverage is available for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about the various types of insurances, because if a person can get one type of insurance, and I am not here to tell anybody that you're guaranteed life insurance. I would never say that. You have to actually apply and find out if you are. And if you are, if you have currently have insurance, what's to stop you from, insurance shopping for a better price? That was me. I thought I had a better price until I came across Derrick. I came across Derrick and found out that I was probably paying probably 30% more than I should have been paying. And I actually got a better coverage deal. So, talk to me about the different types of insurances. You have money building insurances, you have what they call term insurances. Let's talk about the different types of insurances, Derrick.
Okay, so you have several types. One type that I'm particular with is cash value insurance.
Mhm, mhm,
So therefore, that's considered whole life, whether it's final expense or just overall children's policies or whole life insurance coverage itself. Those cash value policies basically build equity. Okay, and as each month you pay, you're building equity on that policy face amount. So therefore, if you got a $25,000 policy, and I'm just throwing numbers out here, and you
Sure.
pay $40 a month for that, 40 times 12, that's your equity, times five, times this, times that. So individuals who have policies that are whole life, they're like, man, I've been paying on this all this long. I don't have, what do I get out of it? Well, you have the equity that's in the policy. For two, you have the coverage. So if anything
Mhm,
that happened to you, your beneficiary, I'm assuming a family member, will be paid out immediately of that $25,000.
mhm,
Not only is it a financial transformation, because when you put $100,000 on one of your children, just give an example, right? You make
mhm,
investment not on their death, but on their life. And what I mean by that, as they get older and older and older, and they have that locked in premium, let's just say as we get older, sometimes we pick up some ailments. We get arthritis, we get this, high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes. I got it so young, that doesn't affect my premium anymore.
mhm.
This dollar amount, and I'm locked into that dollar amount for life. So that's one. So the cash value whole life. You also have what we call term. Term is more or less, it's basically for a convenience. So if you have something you want $400,000, but it's a term policy, you have 10, 15, 20, or 30 years on that policy. Okay. The unfortunate part about that, it's a lot less expensive than whole life. This whole life is just fixed and there's a cash value on it. If in fact that 30 years pass and you're still living, unfortunately, you got to start all over.
Mhm.
So basically, at if you got it at 20 and now you're 50, which is 30 years past, you got to start at 50 to get another policy. Now, there's some term policies that gives basically return of premium. They're a lot more expensive, but after that 30 years, you can get that premium back.
Okay.
And then last but not least is the final expense. Final expense is at pre-existing health conditions. You just want something for burial. You want something just $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, just in case anything happens to me. My family doesn't have to suffer. So I just want them to have enough to bury me, have me the funeral services, and we can take it from there. So that's considered final expense.
Mhm.
Final expense is a great policy. I sell a lot of final expense policies because basically it's something for convenience.
So what's the going cost? What's the going rate of a funeral nowadays?
I was told, and this is without negotiations, at minimum $9,000.
Minimum. Okay. Is that cremation too?
Cremation is five to $7,000.
Okay. Yeah, and who's got $5 or $7,000 just laying around? Well, some people do, but I mean, most people, let's face it, with our economic times now, you could probably do something better with $5 or $7,000. So isn't it better to just pay a minimum fee right now and go ahead and get the coverage for when you need it? And in fact, the coverage plus a little bit more. And I guess the reason why we really hopped into this thing is because just within our local community alone, we have had so many young people under the age of, 15, 16, 17 that have passed away. And we are seeing these GoFundMe's, we're seeing the dinners, we're seeing the t-shirt sales. I mean, there's just all types of ways that people are trying to raise money to fund a funeral, because you just don't think that somebody that young would have to need life insurance. And as it stands now, folks, our young people need life insurance as well. I say everybody needs it, but the parents are not outlive. There's no guarantee a parent's going to outlive a kid anymore. Not in these days and times. So it's just something to think about. We are not pushing sales here, not by any means. What we are providing is information, and information is something that you need to make a proper decision, to make an intelligent decision on what it is that you should do. And if you decide that it's not for you, then it's not for you. You may not have any kids. Okay, you may have, but what about you? If you're a single person and you say you don't have any kids, if something happens to you, who looks out for your interest? Who looks out to make sure that you have a proper, your proper arrangements are taken care of, and so forth. So this is just a thing that we should all think about. Honestly, we should all think about. If you don't have insurance, I would definitely recommend that you give Derrick a call. And if you do have insurance, I would still recommend that you give him a call and do some, price comparisons. Do price comparisons, because you have these. I'll give you a classic example. I ever since my grandchildren have been here, I've had policies, like other people do, but you really would be surprised at how difficult in some instances it is to collect on some of those those children's policies. And then you pay a premium for them, whereas price compare, if you're paying $25 a month, or $60 a month for 10, $15,000, I don't know how much you pay, but wouldn't it be nice to have to pay maybe $20 a month? And maybe get a little bit more life insurance. So Derek, talk to me about instances where you may have someone who has, I think one of our viewers last week had talked about having a pre-existing condition, and you mentioned that already. Tell them why maybe that does not necessarily mean they won't get coverage.
Great. So what that means is that depending on your conditioning, basically this the final expense conversation. So I talked to a customer the last podcast we had, and they reached out to me after the podcast and said, "Hey, I have some issues going on, and I was pretty much under the assumption that I could not get insurance coverage." And we had a long conversation, and we went into the application, and I explained to her after hearing her conditions that there's something for everyone. So don't feel bad about that. It's probably a slight higher premium, but we adjusted to the premium. Instead of
Mhm.
5,000, let's talk about final expense, and therefore you can just get some coverage, so no one would have to worry if anything happened to you. And we ended up getting that person a nice policy, cash value policy for one. And also with a cash value policy, it covers living benefits as well. So those living benefits, if she has a heart attack or anything of that nature, the policy face amount will start paying her while she's living to go through those medical offsets. So there's living benefits to life insurance policies as well. But
Mhm.
just going over the conditions of that person, I'm like, yeah, we got a policy right here, this, and that. Let's go over this. She was immediately approved, and she's like, wow, I had no idea that I can get insurance. Thank you so much. And this is something that I can afford. And that's another thing I deal with my customers. I talk to them about, hey, we're not going to go crazy over here. What can you afford? What's something that you can maintain that won't lapse? Or you might not have some financial issues this day, but this day you will. But no matter what, you can make these payments. And we came
Mhm.
to an agreement, and she got some coverage. And she was
So
very
what happens if someone falls into a financial difficulty type situation and they can't make the payment?
well. There's grace periods for that. So if you can't make the payment, you have a 30-day window. Within 30 days, if you can't come up with that payment, then you fall into a lapse. After the 30 days, then there's two premiums that will be needed to get back on track because you missed the 1 month. You got the next month to come up with it.
Mhm.
After that, you come up with that payment. Third month, then it's considered a complete lapse. And once you complete lapse on the third month process, unfortunately, depending on the outcome, you may have to wait a year to get insurance again.
Wow. Well, there you go. Because that was going to be my next question is, could they reapply, but they may have to wait a year.
Yes, they may have to wait a year because it showed delinquency with the payment. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not, folks, that information travels. Other carriers get that information. So they don't get the full details of your policy, but it will show a lapse. So if you left this carrier and went with another one, but you lapsed over here and opened up one over here, they'll be like, oh, wow, looks like you had some financial difficulties in the past with another carrier. Again, they don't know the details, but they do find out that there was a lapse.
Let's talk about beneficiaries. Let's describe what that is and how you handle that.
So the beneficiaries is your loved ones, friends, or family. And basically, when you nominate that person and say, "Hey, I want Lakeisha Johnson to be my beneficiary," right? What happens is I'll reach out to Lakeisha, give her the information, and say, "Hey, listen, DebraSue felt confident in you to be enough to, make you a beneficiary of the policy." And what I'll do is I'll let her know that you are the beneficiary. If anything were to happen to this person, you have the information. You have the policy details. You have the overall information. You do know the face amount. Sometimes I won't tell them the face amount, but if that person passes, they'll find out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is gather their information, add them on the policy, and therefore they're the beneficiary. If anything happens to them, they would call this carrier and say, "Yes, my name is this, this, and that, policy number this, I am the beneficiary." And the payment,
So, so is there anything that would preclude a person from being a beneficiary?
no, I have not run into that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you have custody of, a niece or a nephew and you're an auntie, you are entitled to be a beneficiary, right?
Yes. Oh, so
Okay.
you the family. Yeah. So yeah, a friend could be a beneficiary, family members. The only offset is that they have to know. So I can't go get insurance on my cousin and my cousin not know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the beneficiary of my cousin. I got 50,000 on him, and he has no knowledge that I got because I know his social security, his address. This I can't do that.
Sure. So how do you suggest then, let's just say you have an elderly parent and the children want to get together and buy an insurance policy on their parent, that parent has to know, right?
Yes, the parent has to know. So we just recently did that for my. So I said, "Hey, mom, me and my two brothers. Hey, listen, we want to get something for you just to make sure." And my mom's like, "I'm all right. Don't worry about me." I said, "I understand that, but we want to be all right. So if
Sure.
want to go crazy and this, and that, and just have a gala event, we want to do that." So you can put up to 5 beneficiaries on a policy. So
Okay.
beneficiary, co-beneficiary is my brother, and extended beneficiaries is my little brother.
Yeah, and that's what you'll find in particular when it's with parental coverages. They usually will add all their children to get an equal amount amongst each of them, right? How do you handle a parent that does not want to talk about life insurance? I mean, because some people are like, "Well, you put me in the ground already."
Yeah,
Because we start early. We have this conversation and we've had it very early on in our. I think the whole thing is just being able to open up. But how would you handle that? How do you suggest someone handle that?
I have the suggestion of handling that, just letting them know this is not just overall from a death standpoint, it's protection for several reasons. If something does happen to you, the elderly person, we want to make sure that you're laid to rest properly because you deserve that. Not only that, we don't want the burdens of trying to figure out this person's going into their savings. I got to come out the money on my end. I got to talk to my cousin who just found out the sorrow of losing this person. And on top of that, hey, I'm going to need a few dollars from you because so we can help me out. Then the embarrassment of a GoFundMe. GoFundMe are great, but that's not life insurance. You're involving everyone to let everyone know that, hey, this person didn't have coverage. So we need the community support on this. Now, you may get the community support, but afterwards, there's going to be chatter. Wow, that person used to dress and this and had all them nice cars and this. You don't need that when you lost someone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they just got back from the Bahamas, this, and they didn't have life insurance. That's unnecessary chatter.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we can put something in place right now while we have this person, and therefore be, because when you hear people have insurance after somebody passes away, it's a
Sure.
first thing you hear. "Oh man, they passed away. Whoa, what happened?" Okay, this did they have insurance? And you're like, "Yeah, why?" Okay, boom, no more chatter, no more disrespectful conversation. Oh
Yeah.
wow, need.
And you know what? I wonder why people are like that because it does happen, and I hate to say that because especially in our own community, it's like we kind of put our nose where it really does not belong, unfortunately. And I really don't like that. But unfortunately, I think most funerals that I have attended or respites or what have you, this is the kind of chatter that happens, because it's surprising. Tell us about some of the most famous people that you know that didn't have life insurance.
Let's start. Prince didn't have life insurance. Uh, uh, Man, who else? Lou Ross didn't have life insurance.
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin had her whole estate was in shambles, and I think they came to a conclusion, but they fought for her estate 5 years after she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Barry White didn't have insurance. You know, it's just
Hmm.
unfortunate. James Brown didn't have insurance because he felt that his estate would take care of everything, but you
Sure.
didn't. So when that happened, everybody went crazy. Like, oh, I'm his cousin, I'm his brother, I'm his aunt. He wrote this letter for me. I get some of that. So it's unfortunate because if you're prepared, it's a more simplistic way, you know. And not only that, if you love and care about your loved ones, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. And you really would be surprised that when you pass away, if you don't have your arrangements in order, a lot of what you are going to have handled is going to be handled through probate court. Whereas if you have insurance, insurance goes directly to the beneficiary that you put on your policy.
And that's an embarrassment for probate. I mean, it just shows the court system that this family was not properly aligned or protected. So now
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get ours. It can take over to 3 to 5 years. Then you owe all these people back money because you had to do what you had to do at that moment. It's not a good situation.
Yeah. So when do you suggest that folks, let's say you got a newborn, when do you suggest that parents get insurance on their children?
As soon as you leave the hospital, because again, we're talking about the growth benefit of that. You're putting an investment. You're not concerning of yourself about the death of that child. You're more or less paying attention to the financial growth. So if let's just say if you put it in a trust, okay? So a family trust, you have a baby, you put a $500,000 policy on that baby, which will be very less expensive than anyone that's 30, 40, 50 years old.
Sure, sure.
You pay into that trust, and that trust goes into it's a family trust. So as you pay into it, anything were to happen, the money goes back into the trust, and all of the family members who pay into that trust can borrow from it. So you become your own bank,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah.
And isn't that what we talked about earlier? Most of us will not die rich, but fortunately, we have predecessors that have shown us how to do this. We have predecessors that have shown us how to have generational wealth. And, however you look at this thing, this is a way to build generational wealth. You get a decent policy, and you run it out until somebody could live 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 years. Can you imagine the amount of growth that you have in that portfolio? Because this is a cash, if you choose the cash building policy, and so you not only have your premiums or whatever's paid into that, then you have the payout itself, and predecessors before us have put, one person passes away and they put a pretty decent amount on the next person, and that just continues. And you have that. Many people don't have $100,000 to pass on to their children. Many people don't have 500,000 or $1 million to pass on to their children, but you can if you have a life insurance policy.
Yeah.
Now, from my understanding, and you can explain this further, is there a waiting period? Let's say if I bought a policy tomorrow for $50,000, and I don't know, you walk out of here and get hit by a bus or something. Is there a waiting period that my children would have to wait for, or is there a waiting period that my insurance itself would kick into effect?
So in reality, there is no waiting period for certain policies, but there are waiting periods for final expense. So if you got a basic whole life policy, cash value building, if you got the policy today and 2 days later you passed away, they owe you the cash value. Now, if you have a final expense policy where there's, how should I say, pre-existing conditions, there's grace periods on that. And what I mean by grace periods, they call it a grading period. So let's say if this person has had a heart attack literally a month ago and he shows signs of cardiovascular issues, right? What they'll do, I'll write a policy on that person. It would be considered a final expense policy. That person would have to live 2 years, 24 months for the full payout. If they don't live for that 24 months, the first year, if they live through that, they get all the premiums back plus 10%. The second year, before the 2 year mark, they get 20% back, or the premiums plus 20% back. But after that second year or grace period, they get the full payout. So if they pass,
Hmm.
I had a
So
customer,
this is almost like a money back guarantee almost.
yes, I had a customer that unfortunately passed away, and they were literally a week after the 2 years,
Wow.
full payout.
Timing.
Timing. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
timing.
Yeah, but she got it though.
She got it. And the family was ecstatic because they had no idea that the policy was in place and they were already processing a GoFundMe.
Sure. That's why it's best to get it as soon as you can, especially if you're already in semi good health. You don't have to be in perfect health. Nobody is anymore, not even our kids. But if you're in a decent health, and if you have some finances, you do not have to be rich to have a life insurance policy, folks. You don't. You have $25 a month, you can actually get a pretty decent insurance policy. I've had it explained to me and I could not believe how affordable this is. And so we really do spend our money, and it's our choice to do so. But for our, discretionary funds, a lot of it, we don't spend it wisely, So why not spend something wisely that could be good for the benefit of yourself and for your family for a lifetime?
If individuals would pay closer attention to financial wealth transformation instead of, and I'm not painting a broad brush here, I'm just saying, you can have a standing order of Amazon just coming every month, every this, every that. You
Mhm.
go to Starbucks every day when you can make coffee at home. You buy food outdoors when you can just make something real quick at home. Get some.
Sure.
All that equates to a cheap policy
Yep.
from a premium standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody sees this, and then when somebody passes away, there comes the chatter.
Yeah. You made it so simple because I can really relate to that. I want I am a coffee fanatic and I love caramel macchiatos, which run about $8 a cup, right? And so if you think about that every day, you have one, or two, because typically I would have two. So you're looking at $16 every single day for the entire week. Because for me, that was breakfast and lunch for me. Look at the amount of money that's spent at $16 times five. That's just during the week. You're looking at a pretty decent amount of money. So I don't know if I have coffee lovers out there or cigarette smokers or whatever it is you call your thing. Look at how much money you spend on it, where you could spend half of that and still get a really good life insurance policy.
And with that coffee, besides the jitter, where's your return on your investment?
Didn't nobody ask you? Okay, that's your two cents. But that's a good point though,
For real.
because now that I've been off of it, there is no return. It's just, and I look at it now when I look back, because I've really tried to get away from habits that are not the best for me. I think about how much money per week, per month, per year that was spent just on coffee. I am a coffee connoisseur. I love coffee, but that's a lot of money. You're talking $200-300 a month sometimes on coffee, or if you're on Netflix, or if you buy or you go to the movie every weekend. Look at how much you spend at the movies every weekend. If you go out, it's just it's discretionary. You can spend your money on whatever you want to spend your money on. But the thing is we're approaching a time in our economic situations that we really have to start being more aware of what we're spending our money on and make our spends wise, because so many things is they're getting cut out and becoming out of our reach because of tariffs. We can't afford certain things. So why not look at something that's a really good investment? And as Derek said, get a return on your investment. Certainly it's a thing you need to have. It's a thing you need to have on your children. So Derek, we're at our 6:28 hour. Is there anything else you'd like to do before we wrap the show up, or like to say before we wrap our show up?
Yes, I'd like to say for my younger people, invest into an IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. That's a policy, it follows the stock market and it grows with the stock market. So if you got $100,000 policy, just an example, and basically the stock market's growing, that 100,000 can turn into 150, $200,000. But the benefit of an Index Universal Life Insurance policy is that you never lose the face amount. So if there's a stock market crash, it's better than a bank, because the bank, you lose your finances. With this, basically, if you invested in $100,000 from a life insurance policy, it does not go below that $100,000. It can grow, but it will not go below that $100,000. So I can talk more about this. I can be reached at my Facebook at NH Insurance One. It's at Facebook, okay, and I also NH1 Insurance. I mean NH Insurance One.com. That's my website. And I'm here for you. If you need any questions, you can call me. Contact number 216-544-4603. And I'm in Ohio. Toledo, that is, but I'm an Ohio native, and I'm here to answer any of your questions. And sometimes when you call, it should basically be a consultation. Nobody has to sign up. If you just want to get educated on the process, give me a call.
Hmm. This subject is so important. We had a high demand for it to come back, and I'm going to bring Derrick back again next month, you guys. I have when I really believe in something, I'm going to push it. I'm going to make it a regular. So if you have friends that maybe missed this episode, invite him back for the next episode, or go ahead and refer him to Derrick. He just mentioned his phone number and his contact method of contact online. But I think this is something, especially in view of the times that we live in nowadays. Even if you have a life insurance policy, what's wrong with two? What's
Yeah,
wrong with another life insurance policy that's maybe a better deal? These are investments. This is your investment portfolio. Especially if you have a cash building life insurance policy, this is a part of your portfolio. And if you don't know what that is, let's get you hip to it. Okay, let's get you hip to what a portfolio is. This means your financial building. Start your portfolio here and cover yourself. Some of you young people just starting your new families out, go ahead and get some insurance on your kids, on your babies that are just coming into the world, your husbands, your wives, your significant others. You don't have to be married to have life insurance, and you designate whoever you want to on your life insurance policy. It's a thing. It's just so easy to do, and it's such a benefit to it. Why wouldn't you?
that's true. That's true. And
Right.
those who have elderly parents, if you have siblings, gather them up and have a conversation. If you need me on the call, I can have those calls with you. But if you want to protect your parents or your friends and family, I'm available.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, guys, we're just running over just a little tiny bit. Thank you, Eliza Lynch, for joining us, and everyone else who. Thank you for your comments, sweetie. I appreciate you. So for everyone who is watching, if you have questions, of course, you can inbox me or you can inbox Derrick for questions. If you'd like to set up an appointment, he's the man to talk to, not me. He's the specialist here. He can answer all your questions, and he can get you on the road to success and start building your portfolio, starting with a life insurance policy for yourself and your family. So, Derrick, we look forward to having you again next month. And hopefully, all of you that are watching on Instagram, on Facebook, on Roku, wherever you are watching from, make sure you tune in with us next time because I always have announcements out for who we're going to have on the next show. So make sure you join us again. Derrick will be here, and I'm here. So if you have questions, please do reach out to me. And if you want to be a guest on the show, inbox me, let me know what you're doing because I have to actually verify you because I only put the truth out here in the on the airways, you guys. So it's just not a hop on and talk. It's a situation where I do like to promote Toledo businesses. We bring people inside of Toledo and we promote your business inside of Toledo as well. We are Toledo to the world with DebraSue. And so this is what I do. This is what I do. I want to help to promote you. I want to help to talk about your business, especially if it's important. And if it's important to me, then I'm going to have it on probably multiple times, multiple months. So get used to it. So, all right, we're going to wrap our show up tonight, everybody. Derrick, thank you so much for coming. I will see you again next month.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so until we meet again, friends, make sure you take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.